There is a strange moment that happens to many people somewhere in the middle of adult life, usually after years of work, routine, and responsibility, when they suddenly realize they are exhausted yet somehow unable to slow down, financially functional yet emotionally uneasy, earning more than they once imagined while still feeling permanently behind. Their calendar is full, their subscriptions are active, their bills are automated, and their lifestyle appears stable from the outside, but beneath the surface there is a quiet realization that the machine never actually stops demanding more. The promotions create larger obligations, the larger obligations require more income, and the higher income slowly reshapes the standard of what now feels necessary. What once looked like financial progress begins to resemble a treadmill that expands at the same speed the person tries to outrun it. What makes this economic trap so difficult to recognize is that it rarely feels dramatic. It does not arrive as collapse. It arrives as normalization. The modern financial system is extraordinarily effective at turning temporary upgrades into permanent expectations. A slightly better apartment becomes the new baseline. Faster delivery becomes standard. Restaurant meals become routine rather than occasional. Vacations evolve from celebration into psychological recovery from work itself. The human brain adapts to improvements with shocking speed, and once adaptation occurs, maintaining the new standard begins to feel emotionally identical to survival. Behavioral economists sometimes describe this phenomenon through hedonic adaptation, the tendency for humans to rapidly normalize positive changes in circumstance. The emotional spike fades, but the financial obligation remains. A person may double their income across a decade and still report nearly identical stress levels because the nervous system recalibrates around the newest standard of living. In practical terms, this means financial growth often increases consumption capacity faster than it increases psychological security. The trap becomes even stronger when identity begins attaching itself to income. Many people no longer work merely to purchase necessities. They work to preserve social positioning, maintain perceived competence, and avoid downward movement within their peer group. Economically speaking, this creates a deeply powerful feedback loop because human beings are more psychologically sensitive to status loss than to equivalent status gain. Losing a lifestyle feels more painful than gaining it ever felt rewarding. This is one reason people remain trapped inside financial systems they privately dislike. The fear is not starvation. The fear is regression. Historically, civilizations have repeatedly created systems where productivity rises while perceived freedom declines. During the late Roman Empire, urban professionals and merchants often became financially dependent on maintaining increasingly expensive lifestyles tied to status and political expectations. In rapidly industrializing societies during the 19th century, factory owners and professionals accumulated more goods than previous generations could imagine, yet many also worked longer hours under rising social pressure to sustain appearances and obligations. The pattern repeats because human psychology has not fundamentally changed, even when economic systems become more technologically advanced. The modern version of this trap is uniquely efficient because consumption itself has become frictionless. Previous generations experienced natural pauses before spending. Physical cash had to be counted. Travel required effort. Shopping required movement. Today, consumption can occur in seconds with almost no emotional interruption. A tired person lying in bed can finance future labor with one click. This creates a dangerous disconnect between decision-making and consequence. The pain of spending is delayed while the pleasure is immediate, which weakens the brain's natural resistance mechanisms. The mathematics behind this system become clearer when examining how expenses scale alongside income. Imagine someone earning $40,000 annually who manages to save 10% of their income, leaving them with $4,000 in yearly savings. If their income later rises to $80,000, logic would suggest their financial security should dramatically improve. Yet many individuals unconsciously increase housing, transportation, food, entertainment, and convenience spending until they still save roughly the same percentage, or sometimes even less. The higher salary creates larger cash flow, but not necessarily larger freedom. This becomes even more significant when recurring expenses dominate the budget. Recurring payments are psychologically powerful because the brain eventually stops consciously registering them. A mortgage, streaming services, car payments, insurance, subscriptions, financing plans, and monthly conveniences slowly transform future income into already claimed money. Economically, the person appears wealthier because gross income increased, but functionally much of their future labor has already been assigned to maintaining past decisions. There is also a deeper structural reason the system perpetuates itself. Modern economies rely heavily on continuous consumption. If large populations suddenly became fully content with modest lifestyles and minimal spending, many sectors would contract dramatically. Advertising, therefore, does not merely sell products. It sells dissatisfaction. Entire industries are built around convincing people that their current state is incomplete, outdated, inefficient, unattractive, or socially inferior. The goal is not necessarily malicious in every case, but the systemic effect is powerful. A population that constantly feels psychologically unfinished will continue consuming. One of the most effective mechanisms within this structure is comparison. Human beings rarely evaluate wealth in absolute terms. They evaluate relative positioning. Someone earning $120,000 may feel financially insecure if surrounded by people earning $250,000, while another person earning far less may feel relatively stable within a different environment. This means satisfaction becomes socially elastic. As environments change, perceived adequacy changes alongside them. Social media intensified this dramatically because individuals now compare themselves not only to neighbors or co-workers, but to curated highlight reels of millions of strangers. Over time, the psychological cost of this comparison system becomes substantial. Many individuals begin organizing life around maintenance rather than meaning. Decisions become optimized for preserving income streams rather than maximizing fulfillment, curiosity, health, relationships, or autonomy. Work that once served life gradually becomes the center of life itself. Ironically, some people eventually realize they no longer remember what the original financial pursuit was meant to accomplish. At the mathematical level, one of the clearest indicators of this trap is the relationship between fixed expenses and required labor hours. A person earning more money but simultaneously locking themselves into higher recurring costs may actually reduce flexibility rather than increase it. Consider two individuals. One earns significantly more but requires 50 hours of labor weekly to sustain high obligations. The other earns less but maintains lower fixed costs and greater time autonomy. Conventional culture usually labels the first person more successful, even if the second possesses greater actual control over daily life. This raises an uncomfortable question modern economies rarely encourage people to ask directly. At what point does increased consumption stop improving quality of life proportionally? Research in behavioral economics repeatedly suggests that after core needs and reasonable security are met, emotional well-being rises far more slowly than income itself. Yet the pursuit often continues indefinitely because the system rewards visible financial escalation even when personal fulfillment plateaus. There is also an identity component hidden beneath the financial mechanics. Many people unknowingly build self-worth around productivity because economic systems consistently reinforce the idea that value comes from output. Rest becomes guilt-inducing. Slowness feels irresponsible. Unstructured time feels unearned. The individual begins interpreting exhaustion as evidence of ambition rather than a warning signal. This mindset keeps the machine operating because people psychologically participate in their own overextension. The irony is that many financial breakthroughs people imagine will create freedom often create new dependence instead. A larger home requires more maintenance. A luxury vehicle increases insurance and replacement expectations. Higher social positioning creates stronger pressure to maintain appearances. Professional advancement frequently reduces time autonomy. The ladder upward can quietly become a cage made from increasingly expensive obligations. None of this means money lacks importance. Financial stability matters deeply because economic insecurity produces real stress, vulnerability, and reduced life options. The issue is not wealth itself. The issue is unconscious escalation without intentional reflection. Systems become dangerous when individuals stop distinguishing between genuine needs, emotional compensation, and socially manufactured expectations. Some of the most financially resilient individuals throughout history shared one subtle characteristic. They maintained a gap between capability and consumption. Instead of converting every increase in income into immediate lifestyle expansion, they preserved flexibility. This flexibility created resilience during economic downturns, career changes, recessions, technological shifts, and personal emergencies. In many cases, freedom came less from extreme wealth and more from reduced dependency. Psychologically, this requires resisting one of the strongest human impulses, which is adaptation-driven expansion. The brain constantly attempts to redefine comfort upward because novelty fades. Understanding this tendency does not completely eliminate it, but awareness creates friction, and friction matters. Systems gain power when they become invisible. Perhaps the most important realization is that the economic trap keeping people working forever is not purely financial. It is psychological, social, and structural simultaneously. People do not remain trapped only because they need money. Many remain trapped because identity, status, habit, expectation, and fear become intertwined with the cycle itself. The system succeeds when endless escalation begins feeling normal. And maybe that is the quiet turning point that changes how someone views money forever, not the realization that wealth is meaningless, but the realization that without conscious boundaries, the pursuit of financial security can slowly consume the very freedom it originally promised.